Hello, friendos and randos. It is review season. It has been a while. I think since we've gotten new leaks for any like new products or anything in general, and they just recently dumped a bunch of OP10 cards for us. So we're just going to go through the leaders for now and quickly talk about my first impressions and my initial thoughts on whether or not they are going to be good leaders or not, and what I kind of expect to be like their overall power levels going into OP10. So right off the bat, we have Punk Hazard Smoker, body swapped Smoker in Tashigi's body, I guess. But they're choosing to go with the heart of the character rather than the body of the character for these Punk Hazard cards. And there are a few other Punk Hazard cards that have been released, specifically the body swap Straw Hats as well. But we will go into those probably in another like YouTube short or something like that. But let's talk about Smoker. So for life red green leader. So I think the last red green leader we got was Chopper, which did not do much. The color combination is quite lackluster ever since of course RG Law fell out of favor early OP05 and hasn't really made a comeback since. And I think that's really because of its one very big glaring weakness against black decks. And unfortunately, it does not seem like this Smoker leader is going to fix that. So first, it's on your opponent's turn, your characters with Navy or Punk Hazard trait gain plus 1000 power. So right off the bat, we have a leader with trait locked leader effect. So not very good to have stuff that is trait locked. Like generally, if you look at things that are popular or very powerful leaders, so a good example is Purple Luffy. Funnily enough, the premier deck in OP09 is a trait lock leader, Blue Doflamingo. But I digress. When you look at other like very powerful leaders like Lucci, Purple Luffy, Sakazuki, Red Purple Law, these leaders tend not to have trait locked leader abilities. And of course, the reason for that is very simple. Trait locking prevents a lot of deck building. It of course makes you unable to use powerful, or at least not use them at the like maximum effectiveness, the maximum effectiveness powerful cards from previous sets, if they don't fit that trait. But on the flip side, I guess it does also mean that you can use cards that were maybe overlooked in previous sets. And I think one good example for this is, I guess, the 4-cost X Drake from Starter Deck 2, which I did really like using when I was playing Red Green Law. But I digress. Let's finish the leader effect first. So on your opponent's turn, only your characters with the Navy or Punk Hazard trait gain 1000 power. So this does make it easier to protect your characters. It does give you that additional, basically free 1k counter every time your opponent tries to attack one of your characters. So things like the X Drake that I mentioned earlier is going to be a 6k body instead of a 5k body, which is really good. And other than that, I guess when it comes to trying to defend them, you get free 1k counter per hit basically. So that's also very good. Unfortunately, it is only on your opponent's turn, so that means like you don't get like that Zoro-esque effect where you also get that attacking power. You only get it as like a defensive bonus. Secondly, I guess the second effect is activate main once per turn. If you have a character with 7000 power or more, you can set 2 of your down as active. Now, this is pretty interesting because for one, it seems like a lot of the Punk Hazard cards that are going to be released, or the Navy cards that are going to be released, do have some other kind of restanding capabilities. Other than that, 7000 power or more, of course, it refers to current power, so it also checks for things like attached Dawn and things like that. So especially if you're running that 4-cost X Drake, like I mentioned earlier, you actually only need 1 Dawn to get your leader effect active as well, so that's pretty good. When it comes to this effect, I think the main issue that I see with it is that because you have to restand Dawn, one thing is that you're unable to use Dawn that you've already attached to, of course, get the additional active Dawn. But the other thing is that it means that you have to play things first before you can use that restand ability as well. So it may not always be able to work out in your favor. But generally, having that additional 2 Dawn active is going to be very useful. Of course, in the later stages of the game, you should be having characters with 7000 power or more. Of course, this also means like if you play like a 5-cost vanilla down, for example, you immediately get that 2 Dawn active, which is pretty useful as well. Other cards that I can see being useful are, like I mentioned, the 4-cost X Drake. So you can put 4 Dawn on You can play the X-Drake and then put one Dawn on him. Immediately he becomes a 7k power character, and then you can set 2 of the Dawn that you use to play him active and then swing 8k with your leader, or you can swing with like your whichever 3 cost character you played down previous turn and your leader as well. So that is one possible use case for this leader I can see off the bat. Of course, we will have to see the support because we don't have a lot of Navy or Punk Hazard cards right now. But of course, right now what we can use are the X-Drake cards that we have. And those are pretty decent cards already, especially in the current meta as well. My current opinion is that we will have to see whether or not this will be a good leader or not. But my initial stance is that it doesn't seem very strong yet. Again, we will have to see the support based on the Punk Hazard as well as the Navy cards that they do end up releasing. But I think with just the X-Drake alone, it is a pretty interesting combo. And I'm looking forward to trying it out. I do miss red-green as a color combo, of course. But again, the issue will always be about having to deal with black and removal in general. And red-green doesn't have good enough tools to deal with that most of the time. So we will see whether Smoker will be playable or not. My initial grading is going to be like tier 3. It's not going to be something that will be able to compete with black still, in my opinion. Okay. Next, we do have Caesar Clown. So another Punk Hazard type. So I think that makes it clear. Red is going to be the Punk Hazard color. Dawn types 2, when attacking, you may return one of your Punk Hazard type characters with a cost of 2 or more to the owner's hand and then KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 4,000 power or less. So right off the bat, we do have again, leader like trade locked stuff. You do need to play Punk Hazard type characters so that you can use this leader effect. And it is a removal effect actually, which is pretty good, but this will really depend on how good the reduction type cards are. So if I'm not wrong, there were a few reviews for Caesar, specifically the Monet, which would give one of your opponent's characters minus 1000 power as well as give 2 rested Dawn. So that's pretty good, and it's an activate main too, although you do have to rest the character. But I think the main thing will be whether or not you are able to have enough Punk Hazard cards that give like reasonable reduction. And then after that, we'll be able to see like, oh, okay, actually, will this like removal kind of focused deck be playable or not? So I think the Monet is a really good example of a good card for this deck because it is a 2 cost character. You play it down, it gives minus 1k, and after that you attach 2 Dawn to Caesar, and then from there you can swing, bounce the Monet, and then you can KO a 5k character. So that's decent. But yeah, again, we will need to see the rest of the options so that we can kind of determine whether it's actually a good leader or not. Okay. Other than that, I don't think there was any like super notable reduction cards that they gave. They did have the Caesar card. The Caesar card gives one of your opponents is a Omen Holy basically that plays down a Smiley, but it's a 7 cost 7k that plays down a 5 cost 6k, which is okay, I guess. The issue being, of course, that you have to return one of your Punk Hazard type characters to your hand. So are you going to return the 7 cost to your hand and then play it out again next turn? Probably not. But the Smiley itself is on play if your leader has the Punk Hazard type, and then you can give one of your opponent's characters minus 3k. So that's pretty decent. I guess you establish the 7/7, you play down the 5/6, and then after that you bounce the Smiley to hand. You can KO a 7k with your leader effect. But you will need to be on 9 Dawn in order to make this play, since you do need the 2 Dawn on leader, so it is kind of iffy for me. Like the control on this leader does not seem very good, in my opinion, for now. But we will see. Again, it will depend on the support that it kind of has, but for now it does not seem very promising at the moment. Again, one of the commonalities with like powerful leaders is that their effects tend to be either cheap or free or broken or very diverse. Like it's very easy to use, or it is easy to build decks and you can just kind of pile a bunch of good stuff together. or the engines that are available are very good. And as of now, because we don't have that Punk Hazard engine, it's very tough to judge whether or not it's a good leader just by the effect alone. As of now, as of the current support, I'm going to give it like tier 3 as well. The red-blue color combination has never really been that good. Of course, Mako leader was one good example of how it was playable, but again, that was only really playable because of the support being pretty decent in the 7-cost Whitebeard in especially, and the leader effect being relatively cheap or close to free. I don't feel like Caesar has that same level of strength when it comes down to things. So it will really depend on the rest of the spot, and even if there is good support, I still cannot really say whether Mako wouldn't just be better because Mako's effect is a little bit more generic, and it's probably much easier to have reduction on your leader than KO on your leader. But those are just my thoughts at the moment. The other important thing is that because that effect is done times 2, it means that you really can't play things above 8 costs if you want to use your leader effect, and you also must always have a Punk Hazard type character on the board. So that means if you want like to play a cheap Punk Hazard character, you effectively only have 6 Dawn to play every turn, because you need to play a 2 cost and then put Dawn times 2, and then you can only play the like remaining 6 Dawn. Of course, if that Punk Hazard character is the Monet that you get to attach Rested Dawn, then that is a slight difference, so you get to play with 8 Dawn, but still it's not a lot. Okay, next. Okay, next leader is Sugar. So that's the third red leader we have this set. This time it is red purple. Red purple Sugar. End of turn, if you have a character with the Don Quixote Pirates type with a power of 6k or more, then set up to one of your Dawn active. So once again, we have a trade locked leader. Again, not ideal, I think. Trade lock really makes things pretty frustrating when it comes to deck building. I think it makes the overall power very weak as well. Personally, in terms of the 09 meta, I think a lot of the strength in Doflamingo at least is coming from just having very strong card pool, even though he is also technically trade locked. There's a lot of mitigation for it, and I'm not sure if there will be the similar amount of mitigation in like Perona, deck stacking, and etc. in like colors like red, green, red, blue, red, purple. But again, open to seeing what they actually end up doing. It is weird that they chose red purple as the color combination for Sugar, because all of the existing Don Quixote cards are either green or blue, so this is like neither of those colors. We will see if they end up printing like a bunch of good Don Quixote Pirates in purple, because obviously red is going to be Punk Hazard, so we will see if they do end up printing good enough support for this leader. And I guess indirectly that also means that the support will be for green purple Doflamingo, which is going to be interesting. So being able to restand 1 Dawn at the end of your turn is kind of just half of the green purple Doflamingo effect, and now it's even conditional, which is even worse. So that's a bit weird. But I guess the good thing is that when you activate an event during your opponent's turn, you can ramp 1 active Dawn. So technically this means that every turn you're able to, if you have counter events available to you, you will be able to ramp twice by your 6 Dawn turn. So I guess on your 8 Dawn turn you will have a 10 cost available to play. Whether or not the 10 costs available for this deck are going to be that powerful is a different question. Most, like the one that jumps to mind right away is going to be, of course, Rush Shanks, the new 09 10 cost Rush Shanks. Other than that, of course, there is going to be 9 cost Luffy that you can ramp to on your 7 Dawn turn very consistently. So on your 3 Dawn and 5 Dawn turn, you would be playing a counter event to ramp 1 Dawn. But again, this means that you would need to have a counter event in order to use your leader effect, and that means that as part of your deck building you will need to include a bunch of counter events, or else your leader effect would basically be not useful at all. And other than that, the last part of things is counter events can be good, but usually you wouldn't want to spend them early game. So I guess the playstyle for this deck would be to want to ramp early, as well as counter early and stay at a high life count until the end of the game, and then at the later stages of the game you would be using these counter events in order to counteract like all of the Dawn minus counter events that you have. So things like, I guess, Blast Breath, Noro Beam you will be able to use without going too far down on Dawn. Unfortunately, because Gum Giant is leader locked, you won't be able to use that to restand one Dawn. But one cool thing is that when you do restand, when you do use Dawn -1 effects, you do get one active Dawn, so you can use 2 counter events, even though you only have like 1 Dawn active. So that's one interesting thing. But this would also mean that you need to have counter events that do go Dawn minus, because if you're at 10 Dawn and you use Radical Beam, for example, you won't be able to play an extra Dawn because you're already at 10 Dawn. So those are just some of the immediate drawbacks that you can kind of identify already. Decks with free ramp tend to be pretty decent. Decks with free ramp, greatest example, Purple Luffy, freest ramp possible, and guaranteed as well. Whereas decks that have kind of ramp that has a requirement, so things like, I guess, Robin, where the ramp requires you to discard, Pudding, where the ramp requires you to have a card that lets you flip your life back face down. These decks tend to struggle a little bit more, because again the ramp isn't as free as it kind of sounds. Purple Yellow Crocodile is another example, has a similar effect where you get to like Dawn -1, get 1 Dawn back. But I think again it's a bit early to decide. Just by the power of the leader effect alone, I'm gonna give this like a tier 3. It doesn't seem strong enough right off the bat. The only really good things I can consider are like, if you ramp 1 time with an actual card, and then you use your leader effect twice, you can get 7 Dawn turn 10 cost Shanks, which is kind of crazy. But other than that, I think it's leaves a lot to be desired. One thing I did note is that they did print, of course, a searcher that you can use on either your main or your counter turn. But other than that, there was also the Senior Pink card, which was able to cycle event card from your trash to your hand. So that also helps a little bit in getting your leader effect to be useful. Whether or not it is good enough will remain to be seen. But yeah, that's it for Sugar right now. So far, all 3 leaders are rated at tier 3. And unfortunately, I don't think it gets much better. So we're going to talk about the next leader, which I have the hugest problem with next. Green Yellow Law. Man, when I saw Law at first, I was really excited. And then I read the effect and my hopes and dreams were crushed. So Dot does not activate main once per turn. If the total cost of your characters is 5 or more, then you can return one of your characters to your hand. Then reveal the top of your life, and if that card is a supernova type character with a cost of 5 or less, then you can play it down. So long ass effect, but basically what it means is bounce one of your own characters to hand, show your life, and if your life is a supernova, then you can play it down. So what this means is Dawn dies 1, you have to first put 1 Dawn on leader. Secondly, you need to have 5 costs worth of characters on board, which means the earliest that you can activate this leader effect is 4 Dawn turn by having a 2 cost and a 3 cost. But what this actually costs you is, first you need to rig your life, so you need to change the top card of your life to ensure that it is a 5 cost or lower supernova. Secondly, you need to return one of your characters to your hand. Thirdly, the top, you go -1 life because you have to reveal the top of your life and then also play the character down from your life. So all of these things mean that this feels pretty bad. For 1, you lose board. For 2, you lose life. And for 3, you have to rig the life in order to actually use this leader effect. Of course, you do have cards like Hiyori that will be able to like help you to make this happen. The problem is that, for 1, what if you don't draw your cards like Hiyori or your Makinos, for example? You could also use Makino, but then you will go -1 life, and then you will also go -1 when you use your leader effect again. So again, very, very frustrating. I think the leader effect feels really, really bad right now because, like, so here's the ideal combo, right? Is that you play a 2 cost character, like you play Hiyori on 2 Dawn, and then after that you play a 3 cost character. And then you use Dawn dies 1 and you leader effect and bounce the Hiyori to your hand so that you can Hiyori again next turn, right? Great. So now you had 5 costs on board. Fantastic, right? Now, then the issue is next turn, if your opponent removes that 3 cost character, and your 5 cost character, for example, then now what, right? So you have to play the 5 cost character, then you won't be able to use your leader effect because you can't guarantee the top of your life. And other than that, it's also paying 1 life to develop a 5 cost character doesn't seem like it's good enough, because it's not like Black Yellow Luffy where developing that 5 cost character also gives you +2 to leader, so you have that extra defense. Like currently the best options you have are like things like Blocker Law, right? The green OP10 Blocker Law, where you can, let's say it was your 5 Dawn turn, you played Hiyori and you played Searcher or whatever, and 1 Dawn on leader, you leader effect, bring down the Blocker Law, bounce your 1 cost Searcher, and then you play down a 3 cost character. Great. But like you did that and lost 1 life, and you lost a character on your board, even if it was like a Hiyori for example, right? Next time you still have to play the Hiyori again. And again, I think the issue is just that the cost doesn't feel fair because you have to go through so many hoops to develop this extra character from your life, whereas for example Doflamingo would just go, okay, Jinbei Revo, and they got the same amount of value as you, and they didn't have to lose 1 life or to have like 5 costs of characters worth on board. So it feels very, very bad, I think. I'm going to rate this tier 4. Like, I'm very frustrated with this leader effect. It just feels so ass. I don't understand why they made it so ass. And I think worse still is that the green yellow color combination is pretty bad as well. Of course, Supernova as a trait doesn't have any cards in yellow at all, except for literally one, the Luffy from Starter Deck 13, the one which takes your own life to get +2, which you are definitely not using in this leader anyway. And they did release promo Bonnie as well, but those are the only cards so far that you can actually use with this as well, so you will need to see more support. Of course, this does have the Supernova type, so it can use cards like 6-cost Hawkins, but then cards like 6-cost Hawkins don't work with the leader effect, so that's another frustrating issue. And of course, the last thing is that despite all of the other hoops that you need to jump through, the leader is still Dawn ×1, so you still have to do that as well. The only other benefits I can think of are that you can play things like the Cavendish still, but yeah, it's oh man, this just doesn't seem very good. Hopefully whatever I'm saying now doesn't age well and it actually turns out like the support for Supernovas is crazy, but man, so far this just does not give me a lot of hope. So current opinion, pretty ass. We will see if they prove me wrong. Okay, second last leader, we have another blue-black leader after Sakazuki. So blue-black can attack. So this is going to be our new, I guess, other blue-black leader that can attack after the promo Sakazuki. And it is also a blue-black Dressrosa leader, so that's pretty interesting. So firstly, your cost 2 and higher Dressrosa type characters have +1 cost. So interestingly, it does they specifically chose not to buff 1-cost characters, which I'm not really sure why that needed to be a thing. Personally, I think it would have been fine to buff your 1-cost characters as well to 2 costs, but yeah, we will see if that ends up being relevant, that like it doesn't buff like 1-cost characters. Other than that, it only buffs Dressrosa type characters, so that does mean that you are limited slightly in your like deck building as well, because the secondary effect is also on your opponent's turn once per turn. This may be activated when all of your Dressrosa type characters are removed from the field by effect, or they are KO'd, I guess, in battle. So if you have 5 or less cards in your hand, you draw 1 card. So it is similar to Hancock, I guess, the blue Hancock leader from OP10, where if a character is removed from the board, then you get to draw a card, but this is limited to only your opponent's turn, and it's only your opponent's removal, so it only like helps you catch up when you are getting your board killed, but it doesn't reward you for being ahead, or like reward you for removing your opponent's board, which is odd considering this is a blue and black deck, which are both like, I mean, you guys remember Sakazuki. It is basically the removal colors, right? And I think they tried very, very hard to kind of not make this Sakazuki again. But the Dressrosa support that they've printed is actually pretty good. So I wanted to go through that later, but I don't have it on the slide now. But I guess we can talk about the Rebecca first. So Rebecca, so on play, if you have a cost 8 or greater character in play, you draw 1 card. and then you reveal up to 2 cost 7 or lower Dressrosa type characters other than Rebecca from your hand. You play one of them active, and then if the other character has a cost of 4 or less, then you can play it rested. So it's a pretty powerful card. It is a 7 cost 4K, so I guess they're like making a trend where the princesses, just like Vivi, they have this 7 cost 4K stat line. So you, for one, you need to have an 8 cost character or higher on the board. So with Usopp's effect, that does make Rebecca herself count towards this I guess requirement. Then other than that, you reveal 2 Dressrosa type character cards from your hand. Interestingly, they've made it such that it doesn't work on the 4 cost Rebecca, which is probably important because that card is already considered pretty strong. So you aren't going to be able to use that. But you will be able to play Rebecca plus a 7 cost plus a 4 cost character. So that is pretty insane. The other 7 cost card that they did review alongside this is the Kyros, which does return a 5 cost or lower character to its owner's hand. And then of course, if you were to play a 4 cost or lower reducer card, then you would be able to return a higher cost character to hand. Unfortunately, returns to hand, but 7-9 stat line, pretty good. So we will see how the rest of this support pans out. They did print a few other cards. I think notably is Nami, Chopper, and Frankie, the ones that are like half turned into like weird by that one, what's her name, Jola, the Don Quixote family, one of the executives, I guess. So another interesting thing is that these cards rest your leader or stage with the Dressrosa type. So specifically, they are both locked and also need you to rest your leader. So they are not the greatest, I'd say, but they have things like, oh, draw 1, then mill 2, which is pretty decent. Then other than that, there was one that if your opponent has 5 hand, then they trash 1, so it's just Perona. And then the last one is blocker that when KO'd, plays a 3 cost or lower Dressrosa card from your trash, which is also not too bad. But I don't know. I think that the leader effect is very lackluster. Like, it gives you a little bit of card draw when your stuff is removed, but it doesn't let you play like the really strong combos that you're expecting from a blue-black kind of leader. Of course, Hound Blaze is going to be an important card that you think of when you think of blue-black. You're going to think of Rebecca Hinaluchi and things like that as well. And this leader effect being leader locked is going to take away from that. But maybe it will be a case where you just kind of see this deck play Rebecca Kyros, and then you also see it play Moria, Rebecca Hinaluchi, and Hound Blaze and things like that. And it will probably still work. The Dressrosa engine seems like it has quite a bit of mill, so cards like Tempest Kick should probably still be playable. But for now, I think this is probably one of the better ones out of the leaders they reviewed. It still looks pretty bad. I still don't see how this competes with like Doflamingo, for example, or Purple Luffy, or Shanks even. Like in terms of the removal so far, it doesn't seem great enough. Of course, the Rebecca SR seems very strong, like because of the fact that this leader effect doesn't need to be Dawn Dice 1. So just like Purple Luffy or Purple Black Luffy, sorry, or Black Luffy, like you don't need the extra Dawn in order to give that +1 cost. So you can actually play Rebecca on 7, which means you would be able to play 7/7/4 on your 7 Dawn turn. But I think I would love to see the rest of the SWAT first. And for now, I think the leader effect itself is just very underwhelming. And then we will see how the rest of the set plays out. Okay, lastly is going to be Eustass Kid. So after Usopp, this seems like a pretty decent effect as well, mainly because it is a quote-unquote free effect, right? You end of turn, you may turn the top card of your life face up, and then you set up to one of your 3 to 8 cost characters with the Supernova type active, and that character gains blocker until the end of your opponent's turn. As of now, we do not have any good examples of Supernova cards in Mono Yellow, but when they do come up with a 8 cost Supernova yellow card, hopefully it has a pretty good stat line, probably like a 8/8 or a 8/9 and a decent effect, and then you can make that card a blocker, and that will be pretty good. I'm expecting there to be a 8 cost Kid, because I mean they like doing things like that where they print 5/6 Luffy in red and yellow and in green as well. So I expect there to be a 8 cost 8k yellow Kid. I don't know what it will do. but probably something related to dying, I guess. Maybe it'll be an on KO effect, since that seems to be relevant. But Supernova trait, you can see that Kid still has his left arm here, so this may actually be a pre-time skip focus cut. The Supernova trait tends to be also a bit more focused on pre-time skip cuts, so that actually may be different. So maybe it won't have to do with him being a jobber. So as of now, there's not too much to say about it. The effect itself seems powerful because it is a free effect. I think I probably do another video about like categorizing what I consider a powerful leader effect, and of course this will look at leader effects in the past that were really powerful, things like Sakazuki, things like Red Purple Law, Red Green Law for its time, Whitebeard and things like that. But as of now, I think Eustass Kid right now has the highest rating for me at like tier 1.5 to tier 2, heavily dependent on the support that comes out for it. As of now, there's literally no examples of support for it right now. I'm just scrolling through the Discord. I really don't remember seeing a single yellow card. So yeah, I don't think there's a single yellow card out now that I can really judge this Eustass Kid on. But the effect itself is free, so it seems like it'll be decent, and we'll have to see what the support turns out to be like. Again, the only yellow Supernova card other than the ST13 Luffy is this Bonnie promo, which lets you heal your opponent off of one 4 cost or lower character, which is so far just okay only. Like it doesn't really, it's just removal, I guess. And I guess it gives you a 5-6 blocker, right? Which is, I mean, 5-6 blocker is a pretty decent stat line, but we will have to see the rest of the support again. If they print something like 7 cost Luffy, the film one, which lets you play another like Supernova from your hand, then sure, maybe it'll be good. But for now, no. We'll see. Interestingly, it says 3 to 8 costs, so maybe it'll be something, the 8 cost kit that they print, maybe it'll be like 8 costs, then you can activate main, you rest it, and then you play a 3 cost from your hand. Sounds familiar. But yeah, Bandai tends to like doing this sort of thing, like where they keep character effects a bit consistent across the board, even in multiple colors. So we will see if that's what they end up doing. So far, final rating, Kid is like 1.5 to 2, Usopp is probably 2, and then the other 4 are all, sorry, Tashigi, Caesar and Sugar are all tier 3, and Law is tier 4. Fucking hell. Like, it had, again, I'm just really frustrated at how they made Law have so many hoops to jump through. It's insane. But I mean, decks that have hoops to jump through tend to be a bit more fun, so I will end up still playing it. I do like Law, so I will end up still playing it. But I hope that the support is good enough that you can actually play it and it's not just trash. But we'll find out in about a month. So in the meantime, look forward to the new ST, was it 21? The Gear 5 Luffy starter deck. It is going to be a Ultimate Deck EX or some shit. I don't remember the exact name, but it's going to be like a fancy schmancy deck. I'm looking forward to it. And I guess when more OP10 cards come out, then we will talk about it as well then. Until then, thank you friendos and randos for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to drop a like. I'm sorry it's been so long since my last video, but I promise I will be back and try to be a bit more consistent. Thank you so much for supporting me until now. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to the channel. I appreciate it so much. We are almost at 3,000 subscribers, which is crazy to me. Other than that, like the video, follow me on Twitter/X, and I guess if I do end up moving to Blue Sky, which it seems like a lot of other VTubers are doing, then follow me there if I create it. And otherwise, thank you so much for watching friendos and randos. I will see you guys again next time. Peace out.